Thank you. Welcome to the Unshakable Foundation meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. This is a main share meeting, and today it was great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome Ralph, who has come to share on the topic of steps 6 and 7 for up to 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for the Q&A portion of the meeting. Ralph, it's over to you.
My name is Ralph White, and I am an alcoholic. And thank you. I'd like to thank the group for asking me to come out and share my experience, strength, and hope on two steps in our program, which used to be extremely intimidating to talk about in my earlier years of recovery. My sobriety date is October the 11th of 1986. And on the night of October the 10th of 1986, I was in a really, really, really bad way. That's my baseline. And I like to remember that is a defining, and that's a bright line for me. I have several bright lines, and it depends on what the occasion calls for when I pull them up. And that's a very important line for me. That's my baseline. October the 10th, 1986, my last day, which I didn't know was my last day. I heard somebody, I don't know if we have anybody new on the platform, but I was on a meeting yesterday and they were introducing some people who were new. They raised their hands, and a lady raised her hand and she said, I have about 3 weeks. She said, oh no, maybe. And then the lady said, 21. Oh no, maybe it's closer to 6. And it reminded me that I had come around here before as a visitor. I didn't know I was visiting. And I didn't mark the date. And looking back, I realized it's because when we walk into recovery, when we've been doing this a while, there are some things that are very important and significant. Sobriety dates are very, very, very important markers for all of us here who have one. But if you're new on the platform and you're just showing up and you don't know or realize where you sit right now, that date is going to be extremely significant. It's going to be something that you probably will remember more than your natal birthday. I'm going to encourage you to go back to whenever it was. You may have to mark an approximate date and mark that spot. One of the critical things to put in your simple kit of spiritual tools, the first one is get a sobriety date. And as much as all of us here know about them, I realize a lot of times when I'm coming in, I have to look back because I realize I catch this disease when I go to meetings. A lot of people already know when they get here. A lot of us are repeat offenders. But if you're brand new to us, sometimes you might be thinking, I don't know. I don't know if I'm bodily and mentally different. For me, the morning of October the 11th of 1986, it was real clear. I was 33 years old. My problems had piled up on me and become astonishingly difficult to solve. That's big book language. Ralph White language when you're in the street is, man, this hole is so deep. The thought of just coming up out of it didn't even come to mind no more. No driver's license, no registration, no insurance. None of that was important because I had no car, hadn't been to a job in over 2 years, hadn't looked at myself full face in the mirror in the last 2 years, didn't know where my little girl was enrolled in school, didn't know where my family was living, could not open a bank account, just the problems were piling up so much. And it's interesting to me when I look back, when you guys assign me this topic, step 6 and step 7 in our 12-step program of recovery. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. When I came in here full of fear, full of a run of bad luck, full of life collapse on a guy, full of guys like me don't get second chances, full of, I wonder if I'll ever have a key to anybody's door again. All that stuff is just on you. And so this business that we talk about in 6 and 7, it's at that point, it's a distant piece of business out on the horizon somewhere, you know. Some immediate stuff that was in front of me. Get the gorilla off the block. Keep the main thing the main thing. We got, how many people sitting on here right now? We got 100 people on the platform, and everybody's hearing something different. This, you know, and that's fine. You know, your ears hear what they hear. And so this message will go, for some people, it'll be, wow, okay, I get it. That's me. Other people that are fairly new, it's going to be a preview of coming attractions. Some of what we'll talk about today, I'm not confronted with yet, and that's okay. Keep the main thing the main thing. And the gorilla was on the block. And so the first thing in front of me in those early days was just get the taste out of my mouth. I'm a smoker. You know, I'm a drinker. The good news about smoking, and I mean smoking cocaine, was I had already stopped smoking weed. Weed was a food group for me. I never thought I'd come up off of weed. I thought I'd be the cool granddaddy in a rocking chair smoking weed with my grandson. That was the mentality. You know, you know what I had to discover, you guys? I had to recover as much from the lifestyle as I did from the drugs and alcohol. Interesting. You know, I hadn't thought of, and because I wasn't built like that originally, but I was in the life, and then I was in it, not, I was in it on what I thought was, you know, this cool tip where, not the smoking down and dirty, degrading stuff, but the clubbing, backstage pass, VIP, you know, girls coming up, because I ain't a Romeo. I'm not a cat. So when you got the sack, or when that guy, now you got girls and all that appealed to be the fast life. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't realize I was as addicted to the lifestyle as I was to the drugs and alcohol. So I come in here and I start, and immediately I have a couple of things, you guys, that work in my favor. One of them is this: I fell in love with you from the very beginning. Not everybody's story, not everybody's experience, but it was mine. I was already used to going to rooms like this with people like you. You know, the rooms I went to didn't have no electricity. The rooms I was in, they didn't keep coming back. The rooms I was in, you run out of money, it's like get your go smelling ass about it, you know. But you guys welcome me. And this was not unusual for me, this business of meeting with you on a daily basis. And I took to it immediately. And we started, I'm from a neck of the woods. I'm from Los Angeles, California. And so I'm fortunate. It took me a while. I'm handicapped by two things in recovery. One of them is this. If it ain't my experience, I think you're lying about it being yours. And the companion to that is, I think that my experience is the experience. So sometimes I'll think the things that ring true for me are the things that should ring true for you. Handicapped by that. It's not necessarily the truth. I hear people share all the time, when I stopped getting loaded, I got worse. I believe you. When I stopped getting loaded, Clancy used to talk about when he wasn't drinking, it was like a spring that was in his stomach. And a lot of my best friends, some of you are on here now, talk about when I stopped, it got worse. That's not my story, and that's not my experience. And so when people have that experience, it'll be conveyed as if it's everybody's and this is what you need. My experience is from the day that I came to you guys, I exhaled. And I don't know if it was because I was surrounded in a recovery community where every meeting I've gone to, I've always seen the book on the table. Every meeting I've gone to, I've always been exposed to the 12 steps. And I think what really happened is for a lot of us, we finished dying in the rooms. That scares people. People get upset. We need to rush newcomers through it. They're coming in here to die. That doesn't scare me. I gotta die in order to be reborn. I was dead when I got here. Some people finish dying in the rooms. Okay. If God is everything, don't trip. Don't trip. This is a good place to finish dying. Come up in here in the ER and finish doing what it is that some of us already come in here flatline. Some of us get flatlined after we get here. I'm not, but let me get off that because I'm in other people's story. My story, man, was I came in here, I was surrendered, not of my own doing. I didn't have I had something to do with it. I kept smoking and I kept getting the consequences of that. And I kept being in them places and I kept becoming that guy. And that guy that I wouldn't look at in the mirror full face was a guy that I never thought I'd be. The guy that ended up smoking to stop from thinking about where some drinking and smoking and taking. That's it. I wasn't getting any joy out of it. I wasn't getting any satisfaction. I wasn't in it wasn't any party anymore. It wasn't any more threesomes in the motel and it's only pop. No. I'm drinking and smoking to stop from thinking about where drinking and using have taken me. Vicious cycle. Hit you guys. Start going to meetings. Immediately, fell in love with the fellowship. Then after I was in here about a year, you guys, don't get confused that because I haven't started reading the material formally yet, that I have not yet put my feet on a path that's really going somewhere. The AA way of life, that I hadn't really started the seeking process. This business that we encounter when we get here, I think I don't understand it. And I really think I have a hand in it. Sometimes as a sponsor, as an old timer in our fellowship and the rest, I'll communicate a message that still is this human power deal. When you walk up in here with us, you guys, everybody that's on the platform right now, we've walked into this amazing grace. We've walked into something that we didn't create. We've walked into something we didn't have to buy. We didn't have to purchase. We didn't have to earn. We don't have to get it from somebody else. We don't have to barter for it. It's available. It is available to the newest person in here, to the person that's stale, to the person that's feeling like they losing hope and enthusiasm, for the person who feels like the juice ain't there anymore. It's available. Always. And it's easy. It's easier than doing the aimless walk. It's attractive. And where I come from, folk made it available. And so I started going through these steps. I learned some things, interestingly enough, when I was in like that young gun phase. Most of us get to, phases of development. I see a lot of you guys on here that inspire me to no end. I see you. I see the enthusiasm and I'm not scared about where our program is going and if we're in good hands. I don't worry about that at all, and I see that drive and that enthusiasm. And I remember being in that place, where you at the point, it ain't the quantity of sobriety, it's the quality. And of course, when you don't have quantity, you got to say that. That's me. I'm always downrating what I ain't got in order for me to, to emphasize what I do. Don't do that. Just emphasize what you have. You ain't got a worthless old time. Don't do that. Don't do that. I've done that. Worthless old time. Then I'll come up in here with people who kept the door because they are not able to articulate. And so start talking about, I want to rush people through this. I don't think, and now I'm going to get to what you asked me to get to. I don't think there's any such thing for me as rushing somebody through the steps. Now, I understand the zeal and I understand the the idea that, okay, dude, we have a process of recovery that has been proven by millions of people that it works. We've stumbled onto something. Two men back in 1935, they hooked up and they started looking for people like me and you. And in about 2 years' time, they had discovered about 40 people had bought into this deal they were doing, right? The way they got down. And they did it, and they said, wow, we might have stumbled onto something. How are we going to let Ralph White know when it's his turn? And they said, we'll put it in a book. And they put me in that book. And so sometimes when you get that zeal, you taste that new recovery and you just want to, and I can remember, I want to bring somebody through the steps immediately. They die. And I don't believe there is a bringing somebody through the steps, in a microwave version, because we're a microwave society. I think I can bring somebody to the steps. But I don't think, because I'm going to speak specifically now about step 6 and 7 and what they represent. So I did, ass whoop. That's first condition, well whooped ass for that step 1 experience. Can't nobody give you desire. You got to bring that yourself. And the only way I know, the best way to get desire and willingness, well whooped ass. I have one. And I came in, man, hungry and with the desire. Going to meetings, and you guys slow walked me through a second step. I kept going to meetings, and I kept hearing you singing the same song. Alcohol and drugs whooped my ass. I found a power bigger than me. I haven't had a drink in X number of months, or I haven't used it. And I knew that many of you couldn't be lying to me. And I took a chance on the power. And in order to take a chance on the power, I got on my knees and I said, God, do something with your boy. In the third step, I'm not a reclamation project. I'm not a rehabilitation project. I'm a real estate agent. So I get fixer uppers. I'm not that. I'm a tear down. I am a tear down to the studs, raise the ground. Our book describes roots, grass, new soil. I'm that. I'm uninhabitable. I'm abandoned. Don't come up in here. Anybody that enters this guy's life when he's active in it, beware. There are consequences. Only 2 categories of people that come up in this toe-down structure, Marks and Vicks. That's it. I don't mean to be that way. I'm not trying to be that way. That's the way I'm constructed as a result of what happened to me, living that life, and if you're in the life like I was in, and so tear it down. Third step, tear it down. Do something with me. And here's where all our steps now, that's the pivot point. And so, okay, God, relieve me of this bondage of self. When we get to step 6 and 7, many of you scholars that read the book and go through the book will say, it's only 2 paragraphs on 6 and 7. Must not be that important, because I'm a smart guy. So I know that it's a whole bunch of stuff devoted to step 1. Step 1 must be important. It's a whole chapter to step 2. Step 2 must be important. Step 3, oh my God, we talk about the actor. We talk about selflessness, self-centered. We got a whole prayer devote. We do all this stuff. Gotta be important. 4 and 5, everybody talks about that. We know that's important. Writing stuff down. Portrayal. I'm scared of that, but I'm going to do it anyway. Then 5th step, telling, no, snitching on myself. Are you serious? But okay, I want the gorilla off my block. So those are serious things. But 6 and 7, okay, just get by that. Why is it only 2 paragraphs devoted to those steps, you think? I contend, you guys, and I want to put it for your consideration. I've said it a lot. I believe the whole book is about 6 and 7. Everything that we do is about that deal, these defects of character and these shortcomings. We call them other things. We call them bondage of self. We'll say that in our 3rd step. That's immediately where we talk about it. We'll start talking. So we have all this other language about it, selfishness and self-centeredness. This we think is the root of our problem. Everything that you think about, that we talk about, this being rid of self, self manifested in various ways, all that. all that. And so the interesting thing when I get through writing this fourth step, because when I go get off my knees, the way that you'll know that I've done a third step is you'll see me with a pen in my hand. And so when I get through this writing, and so now I've written this resentment inventory and this sex conduct inventory and this fear inventory, and I sit down with a closed mouth person. Early days it was with clergy. Most of us do it with sponsors. Over the years, I've done fifth steps with sponsors, sponsees, friends, other members that I respect a lot. And just, I like the experience, but always with the sponsor. And then when you come out of that, and you are acquainted with some stuff, because you go into a fourth step speaking a different language, right? Your first three columns, I like to call it, you go into that speaking victimese. And that fourth column is like the Babel program, that translator, where you come out of that. Now you see, and a lot of people say it's truth. I don't know if it's so much truth as altered reality in the rest, but what's real? Now I see, oh my God. And so I've talked about it to a spot, and now I'm squarely confronted with the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the reason why, when I say early on, I can go to the steps, but not through them, 6 and 7, particularly, they show the operation of our 12-step recovery process in a way that's better than anything else when you spotlight them. They show the evolutionary aspects of this way of life. They show the maturation process of this way of life. They show the rudimentary elements of this way of life. This is a design for living. It's not a homework assignment. It's not a set of discrete steps that are independent. What step are you on? Okay, I'm not knocking at you guys. Again, like I say, my experience ain't the experience. So your experience is yours. But for me, it's not, you can ask me what's up. Now, when I'm writing an inventory, you can ask me and I'll say I'm writing inventory. But at the same time, I'm also doing some other stuff. I'm living on my third step. I'm still always in this business of coming to believe. When I encounter something, especially now, because I've done this a few times, so I'm always living in this business of watching, the things in me that are liable to get sideways with you. I'm always in that business, right? So, but let's talk about 6 and 7 and really, how they shine a light on what we do. I've been with you guys 39 years, and I've come to, here's what I know. When I did my first swipe at the 6th step and the 7th step, I did not even know some of what will become defects of character. It's, this business of recovery, you guys, is dynamic. It's not static. It's always growing and changing. What do you mean by that, Ralph? Well, I was 33 when I got here, remember? I haven't been in anybody's job in a year and a half, 2 years, right? I was extremely humiliated. Started bleeding in the humility, right? Which is good for a guy like me. I have to seek humility, you guys. It's not my default setting. My default setting is either, superior to or inferior to, usually at the same time. Usually at the same time. I could look at a brother, one of the guys on here, and be in my head. He don't know what he talking about. He can't speak this King's English. He ain't as sharp as me. He ain't as slick as me. And so now I'm in the superior stance, but he'll stand up and he'll do that tilt of his head. Oh, but he's more of a man than me. And he'll whoop and so I got this inferior, superior thing coexisting. I've never looked straight across. This business of leveling the field, unanticipated consequence of the 12-step process. I didn't know young I was going to venture here, but I am. I'm here now. So what I want to share with you guys, in addition to the 6 and 7 step, is some of what comes out of 6 and 7 and the 12-step process of recovery that I didn't know I want. I didn't know. I call it the fine print. I knew I wanted to stop drinking, and I knew I wanted to stop using. I didn't know that integrity was on offer. I didn't know being responsible was on offer. I didn't know granddad was available. I didn't know what my sponsor calls the joy of being a good man. I didn't know that was on offer. Just that, fellas. Just because. Not to be slick, not to be, not to have a bunch of money. The joy of being a good man. I didn't know. I'm encountering some stuff now, and I didn't know the kind of friendships that are on offer here were available. I didn't know. I didn't know unconditional love was on offer. I didn't know. It's the kindness that people can extend, and that I can be a vessel for that too. I didn't know. I didn't know that was on offer. And in the 6th and 7th step, we do a lot of talking about unity. So in the early days, you guys, because I didn't know, I was defeated, ass out. So a lot of the things that are rearing their ugly head as defects for me were not defects in my first and second year. In my first and second year, I didn't realize, because I hadn't had, an intimate relationship. I had done some hit it and quit. I had done some, hooking up early on. I hadn't had a significant, and I got divorced, and I had to do sex conduct inventory over my first wife and the rest of that to really take a look at me. But I couldn't look at grown man in relationships. I couldn't see some of the way Ralph shows up, because in the life, I had been I misread how I was. And then it got so twisted in the last 4 or 5 years. I'm the kind of guy, man, I was married and don't expect to see me on Thursday on payday. And I trained my wife. My wife got to feel in that way too. She didn't expect to see me on Thursday paydays. Because this was, me and her got together in 72. We broke up in 85. We got married in 80. So we were together 13 years. And about the last 6 or 7 of those years, I was never coming home with a paycheck. In the last 6 or 7, I was never coming home on payday. So when you in a relationship like that with a guy, you as well as him start thinking this is normal. So a lot of that kind of stuff I had to unlearn, right? So now, about 1.5 years, 2 years in, I get in my first serious relationship with who was later going to become my wife in recovery. And we stayed together about 20 years. And that was when I went in my third valley in recovery, when we broke up, me and Lisa. But in that relationship, some stuff started showing that I didn't know were defects of character, because they hadn't shown before. I hadn't been in a relationship like that. And so it was about 5 or 6 years when some of these defects, this idea that I gotta be right, I gotta have the last word. I'm overly sensitive. My feelings get hurt. Some of that stuff I didn't know, because it hadn't had an opportunity to show. Some of the things also, and I didn't mean for this thought to go in this direction, but it is what it is. So, I started working, you guys. And so I'm working and I'm entry level in a position that I used to train people to do. But I'm entry level at this law firm, and I build my way back up in there because of doing what you guys taught me to do. I show up early. I leave late. I give $1 day work for 50 cents wages. I give you more, and I over deliver, and I under, and I do it. I start doing what I say I'm say where I'm going to be, and I'm there, and I do what I say I'm going to do, and I do it. And just practicing AA, in the workplace, I started advancing. So in some years now, I'm supervising. I didn't know there was some defects of character in this guy because they had not had the opportunity to present. I had not had the opportunity to see how condescending I could be. I had not had the opportunity to see how I could cut you and how my sarcasm, so that I think is sarcastic and witty, is hurtful. It's cutting. I didn't see how I could be short-tempered and impatient. I didn't see how I could take this responsibility and take it as, authority and lord it up. I didn't know some of that. So some of the things in 6 and 7, you guys, which is why it's fluid and dynamic, there are some defects that I don't come in with, that I realize I don't know with them, right? Because I have my instincts. They all come two places, you guys. Everything that we do. And here's one thing I'm going to present, and it's not just Ralph's experience. It's pretty much what I believe. There are two origins for most of what it is we do. And most of what we do and most of where our fears or however it is that we show up in the program, how we show up in our families, how we show up in our lives, how we show up with our spouses, how we show up with our mates. Most of the originating, they come from two places. I'm either operating out of love or I'm operating out of fear. I'm operating out of love or I'm operating out of fear. When I'm operating out of fear, well, sometimes it seems like I'm operating out of selfishness, right? My defects of character. Sometimes it seems like they're out of selfishness. Well, when they operate out of selfishness, what am I being selfish about? I'm selfish because I have a fear that I'm going to lose something that I think is mine, or I'm not going to get something that I think I have coming to me. I have a fear that I'm not going to have enough. I have a fear that it's going to run out. So selfishly, I cling to it and I hold on to it. So fear, usually I'm operating out of fear or out of love. The instinct is the same. The instinct is the same. I have an instinct. I'm ambitious, right? And so that ambition, when it's used out of love, it causes me, it has caused me, for instance, I think big and I dream big. Let me step on this road for a moment while I'm talking about that. And if you're new on this program, and you could take it or leave it. I'm just in a place right now, you guys. I want to encourage you, if you're new, don't be scared to dream. If you're in the middle, if you're stale, if you're stagnant, if you're hurting, if you're stuck, if you're frustrated, I want to encourage you. And you ain't got to be reasonable. I want to go back to school. You 35 years, you 40 years old. That don't even read. That don't make sense. Don't be reasonable. My kids ain't talking to me. They ain't going to never talk to me. Why am I going to even bother going through with these amends? Why am I even going to bother writing this? Don't worry about that. Don't worry about being reasonable. Worry about that. I will encourage you, in this space, and with this group of people that you the best put your hands in their hands. Dare. Aspire. Try. Love. That's what we do. At our worst, we let these defects rule us. I come out of fear. Self-centered fear, chief activator of my defects of character. You will see that most of my defects, they don't get addressed in the 6th and 7th step, by the way. My defects of character, they don't get addressed there. They get addressed in an ongoing way. As I look back over all the years I've been doing this with you guys, usually most of the way they get addressed is, by continuing this process. What's one of my defects? Okay, one of my defects. I had a kid working for me, guys, when I was still in the workplace, and he was an earnest young guy, and he was making mistakes, but he was doing this. He was trying. He wasn't trying to do something at me or hurt me, and so one day. This is when I was still the works of God. This was pre-pandemic, probably 2019 or something. His name was John, and he was talking to me, and I said, John, I don't want to talk about it. Just fix it. I'm tired of talking to you about this same thing. And I really came out of character. I want to call it out of character, but apparently it wasn't out of character. Apparently this is who Ralph White is, at his worst, and maybe not even at his worst. This is how he shows up, because he's not one way. He's all of this. Yeah, he's this guy at the meetings, and he's this guy but he's also this guy at work. He's also this guy when he's got the boss hat on. He's also this guy when he's in a relationship and he's scared about, are you going to leave me? Are you going to stay with me? Or that fear that always drives him, which is, when you really get to know me, you ain't going to like me. So he's driven by all this stuff. And when he has those drivers, that fear is a driver, it activates the defective character, right? Defective character got to hold on, got to check you, got to watch you. Defective character always got to be right, always got to know, defects of character. So anyway, I'm in the workplace, and I must have been short this particular day. It was a Thursday, and he came to me. I said, hey man, I thought I told you don't bring me that shit again. Ooh, I'm at work. Earnest young kid, right? And so he sits down, and I know he's hurt, but I'm stuck. No, I told you. I told you don't bring me this anymore. You stupid, blah, blah, blah. God, we run out of time. And I had to go speak in San Diego the next night. It was a Friday. And so I go home that day. Here's your speaker, right? In the 7-step prayer, it says, remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows, right? So sometimes that'll imply some of the defects don't stand in the way of my usefulness. Really, really. Some of the great meetings that we have now have arisen because of a defective character. Some of the great things that have been out of defective character. God will work with your worst, and he'll turn it to his advantage. Don't trip off that. But don't you sit up here and try to polish the worst and use that as a loophole to hold on to it. But just let God do what he do. Anyway, I said, damn, I'm going to have to speak. I know when I'm speaking, I don't know what's going to come out. This idea of me berating this guy might come out. I don't mind sharing my weaknesses, but I like to have a happy ending. So I go to work the next day, and motivated by that, I'm going to have to go see y'all at a meeting, and I want to have a happy ending. I said, John, let me holler at you. So here's the thing that takes place. Here's the operation of 6 and 7. 6 and 7 is connected to, so I make amends to this young man for the way I talked to him, right? I should have promptly did it. It should have been in a prompt 10th step. That's the operation of our steps, you guys. You look at it in the 10th step, you got to watch her. And that watcher says, you're watching for these resentments, that fear, that dishonesty, and that selfishness, right? You catch it, and you say, okay, but I make amends to him because I want to have a happy ending. And so I tell John, look, I shouldn't have talked about, but I do what we do in amends, right? And so now, so I make the amends. He's trying to do this. And in my 10th step, that should have been a 10th step, you're looking for that and the rest. And so anyway, I go to San Diego, and it doesn't matter. God uses everything available to him for a knucklehead like me. And that idea of my ego and how I'm going to sound and how I'm going to look, it made me do the right thing, because for that young man, it meant everything. Who cares the motivation for this guy? Make that young man whole. And then as I'm driving, and it turns out I don't even talk about it. Don't come up, don't nothing, but the operation of that 6 and 7 step is make the amends. Then, when you go all through that day, I'm okay, God, this is your world. This is your show. This is you in charge. And then and you got this. Stop me from running my mouth, lording it over, thinking that I'm superior to this guy. We shoulder to shoulder. No. I have more responsibility, but I'm not an authority over him. I'm not. And so, okay, God. So I'm inviting him in, and I give it up, and then I watch God work with the defect. One of the things that I say when I do an 8th step and a 9th step, when I do a 9th step, is this ain't going to be repeated again. I don't have the power to not repeat it again. I go to God and I say, okay, God, this is a step 7 situation. This is something that you got to take away from me because I can't do it myself. And most of oh my God, you guys, I already, Young, let me have 1 minute. Let me just have 1 minute. And I apologize. I really like to adhere to the time, you guys. I really like to adhere to the time. I'm going to go off script for 1 minute because I got you guys here. And I just want to invite each and every person on here. This 12-step process that we have, it's transformational. It's not magic, and it's not human power, and it's not behavior modification. The 6th and 7th step is not about changing my behavior. It's about a 12-step process that transforms a guy. And this guy does not find it necessary to be that guy. This guy who came in as a perpetrator, who came in fraudulent, who came in worried about what you think about me, has been transformed. And he's been transformed not only through a process, but also through a fellowship. Because I know, and I'm talking about things I know, you guys, because of what you do for me right now. I know that I get to be Ralph White, singing his song in his voice, walking his walk in his steps, because you guys let me know it. I cannot express to you how grateful I am for the encouragement, for the support, for the uplifting, for God. John, I see you on here, and I'm glad I'm looking at you because I want to thank you, sir. I want to thank each and every one of you who reached out. And I want to thank you guys on behalf of my family, for being my family and being here in spite of me showing my ass in 6 and helping me to live through this 7-step process that allows me to operate out of that second piece, out of love and not fear. My name is Ralph White. I'm an alcoholic.
Come on in, Young. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Hi, everyone. My name's Young, recovered addict. Thank you so much, Ralph. Always. I love your words and your experience and your humility always, Ralph. Question. I'll just go straight into the question. You kind of touched on it. Have you got another example of when some of your defects of character have been useful in your greatest teachers? Thanks, Ralph.
Oh my goodness. For most of us, people say that there are a couple of touchstones of spiritual growth. One of them is pain. And one of them is, I think one of them is interest and desire. And for me, my defects, let me see if I can give you some 2 or 3 concrete examples really quickly, of defects of character that have been, beneficial for me. I got sideways with a guy not 2 years ago. I don't normally have a lot of people on my inventory, but I had 6 people, and they came out of this one real estate transaction. And this guy came at me sideways. We were in a discussion, and he told me, "Shut up." Wow. Me and him were talking back and forth. He said, "Shut up." And it triggered, it triggered when I get scared. When I get scared, my defects come up. Because when I get scared and you feel like you playing with, now it seems like we on an uneven field. Be careful, you guys. When I pick up the weapons, that's the reason why I got to stay out of gossip. I got to stay out of retaliation. I got to stay because I pick up your weapons because I feel like you got an unfair advantage over me. You're going to punk me. You're going to try to take advantage of me. And so now when the dude told me that, shut up, I come at him. All of a sudden, I represent somebody. I forget I represent somebody. I take it personal. I make it about me. I come out of angry black man place. Hey, check this out, dude. You need to know who the hell you. And now I'm not that guy. He in another city. He in San Diego. I'm in LA. And on the phone, everybody can be a tough guy, including me. I'm talking shit. I'll roll on you, right? Just and so we going at it, But I gotta watch her. That's when 6 and 7 operate with all the other steps, right? Because I'm watching, and in the 10th step, I say, "Oh shit." Oh, and I got 11 step, pause when agitated. I got a pause button. I always say, you guys, all of you guys that's on here, here's an important muscle to start exercising when you talk about the 6th and the 7th step. And it's one that is underutilized. It's called the shut the F up muscle. When the 11th step calls it pause. I call it the shut the F up muscle. The violence is on here. They know how to exercise that muscle, fellas. It's underutilized, but it's valuable. And so I tell dude, because I'm in it, young. I said, hold up, man. Excuse me, sir. Let's lower the temperature. And so we go through, I immediately back out, make a quick amends there because that was called for. I go to the humility spot. I go to the humility spot in that one. And you know what I learned as a result of those kinds of things, because I'm a little guy and I always, I see intimidation when it ain't there. I see disrespect sometime when it ain't there. I know I'm the only one, but what I learned as a result of backing up, it didn't feel like backing down. It felt like backing up, but you got to exercise that muscle a lot. You got to exercise that muscle a lot before it becomes what you guys think that you see. And Young says, Ralph, you got a lot of humility. Well, it comes from exercising that muscle a lot. It comes from realizing, as a result of exercising that muscle, that what I used to think, that you're going to think less of me, that you're going to think you can punk me, that you're going to think you can take advantage of me. The only way that you're going to put in operation this business of God is everything or He is nothing is if you put it in operation. And the way you're going to get to put it in operation is when those defects pop up. And you got to go. That's a 6-step proposition. If you sideways with somebody right now, if you still looking at porn and say, I don't want to look, if you still creeping and answering that call at night and say, I'm not going to do that no more. If you still doing that kind of stuff, here's the thing. If you justifying it, but if you come home and say, God, I'm done. I can't do this no more. 6th step. You're getting ready to give it to God. And you're getting ready. When you give it to Him, it ain't easy. That's why it ain't no one pass through these things. It ain't no, we go through. No, this is a process. Men and women like you and me, we in some stuff that we've been doing for a minute. We've been doing it for a minute. And so we let this God of our understanding work with us. And then we come out on the other side of it. But it's a process, Young. It's not an event. It's not a couple of incidents. It's a culmination of a lot of incidents. And it'll transform you.
That's great. Thank you for your question, Young. Martin, come on in, please.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your service and making it a beautiful meeting. My name's Martin. I'm a very grateful recovered addict and alcoholic, and I didn't have to drink or drug today, and that's thanks to God as I understand Him. Yeah, my question to you, Ralph, is, I'm trying to improve my spirituality, and get closer contact with God as I understand Him each day, and I'm reading a lot of literature that's outside of Alcoholics Anonymous, but, I'm still of them defects. I still picking and choosing. So what was your favourite literature outside of Alcoholics Anonymous that brought you closer to God?
Well, I am going to go way off the board. I read Richard Rohr, I read Merton, I meditate with a lot of stuff. But some of my favorite literature that brings me close to God, novels. I read Connolly, I read Parker, there's nothing I do that doesn't bring me closer to God. I heard somebody say, because people share, when two or more of us are gathered in His name, He's in the midst. And I heard somebody share one time, and I don't mean to say anything about what they share, but it made me think. He said, when two or more of us are gathered and it's not in His name, He's not in the midst. I don't believe that. I believe when I'm talking about the Lakers, God is in the midst. I believe when I'm talking about Marvin Gaye singing, God is in the midst. I believe when I'm talking about when I went to that last Broadway play I went and I think God is in the midst. I think that sometimes I make too much of this spiritual business. I make too much. I think that if I sing only gospel music and if I read Rohr and Merton and all the guys that the guru guys say in the meetings, then I'm going to get close like that. I'm not docking that either. I'm really, really not, Martin. But you have this guy in front of you today. And this guy in front of you today is saying this: God don't make hard terms. He's in the little things and He's in the big things. He's in the things that say and label themselves as spiritual, and He's in the things that label themselves as fun. In our 12th step, in our chapter there, working with others, it talks about getting back in the stream of life. And there's a line in there that says, Ralph, you can even go back to plain old whoopee parties. I never went to whoopee parties, but just dancing. The joy of living. I'm 72. Maybe I'm waxing a little too philosophical right now because of what's going on. But all you guys that's on here, you thumpers and you seekers, God don't make hard terms. Where isn't seeking? Where is seeking not if you're a seeker? You see it in the small things and in the large. At least that's my experience.
Thank you so much for your question. John, come on in, please.
Ralph, good to see you as always, buddy. I wanted to hear a little more detail. When you're taking a guy through the steps, is there any really concrete instructions you give on 6 and 7? I'm sure you do the readings and you have a conversation about what it means, but is there any concrete kind of practices you have, and how long from the time the guy takes a 5th step until he's writing his 8th step?
I'm going to do the second part first because it's the easiest part. Often coming out of the 5th step, when we leave and you've done your 5th step and leave and go, to do the hour and the rest, leaving with the outlines of what me and you have seen from your inventory is 8th step. I already have those names written down because I'm a guy that also is more than just, I call it a clinical sponsor, just a step sponsor, because I'm in your business. We have a relationship. So sometime I know some of the names that I have one of my guys on it right now. And it wasn't even out of 5th step. I say, here are some of the names I know should be the start of an amends list for you. Now you flesh them out. So to your second question, when the person is leaving, have the beginnings. It may not be complete, but the beginnings of 8th step. When you go back, bring me back 8-step list. 8-step. Now, and the interesting thing about that is the operation of the 6th and 7th step happens when you start writing 8-step. One of the things that happens when you write an 8-step, and it's not an instruction, kind of usually for many of us, one of our main defects is procrastination. Just by starting to write that 8th step, I'm addressing that defect of character. When I go see the people, when I go sit in front of people and do a 9th step, do you know how many defects of character I'm addressing right there? I'm addressing this. Oh, I got to have the last word. I'm going to be humble. I'm going to listen. I'm addressing this. Get them before they get me. That kind of attitude that I have. I'm addressing this judgment. Oh, I'm judgmental. I'm extremely judgmental. I'm opinionated, and when you do a 9th step, so much of that is in the back burner. Opinionated, judgmental, last word, argumentative. Think of all the things that have to get addressed when you're doing a 9th step. I don't get to argue. I don't get to rebut. I don't get to have the last word. I get to suspend my judgments. And the big piece, I get to bring forgiveness to the table. Great defect of character. That if you do something to me, I need you to hurt. And I need you to know it's connected to what you did to me. It's business of forgiveness. The other thing, when I talk about a 6 and 7, and I didn't even get to touch most of that. When I do 7th step, the moment I do more than humbly ask, Ralph, wait. What is it that you do? You doing more than humbly ask. Oh, now I'm going to go and I don't believe it's behavior modification, even though there's an element that looks like that. Some gross defects of character I can address. Check this out, man. That shit that you're doing when you go up in the meetings and you got to be disruptive, I'm going to need you to go in there and start going to the meetings and sit your ass down in the seat and be still. Some defects lend themselves, to sort of behavior modification. But the deep-seated ones, the deep ones, that you in the bed with your girl and you determine that I am going to come home in a good mood today. You left the meeting. It was spiritual. You were kind of sideways. You said, I'm going to go in and be kind and loving. She meets you at the door. She just turns around when she opened the door and you were getting ready. And all of a sudden, the kind and loving words that were on your lips come out. The hell is wrong with you? Wait. I didn't intend for... And it happens again, right? Because some of this stuff that we address in 6 and 7, which is why it's not a one pass. The things that are like plaque on my soul that are really on there, they're not a one pass. I'm not a one pass guy. See, I'm not a sipping guy. That means I don't sip my defects either. They're hardwired. And so I share with the people that I work with sometimes, this is process. I'm going to say this and quit. Overarching. Great question, John. Overarching. You guys, in the spiritual realm that we work with, remember, it's not either or. More than one thing is true at the same time. So I encourage people, even when you're working with your defects, even when you're defective, Bill, so even when you run in your mouth, even when you still put your foot in your mouth, even when you say the wrong thing, even when you get on the wrong side of people, even when you can't stop yourself from gossiping and you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube because you done let it out, even when all that stuff is going on, you don't have to go home and beat yourself up. You're the best you are today, right now. What you're looking for, you're looking with, is the way Chuck C put it. You're the best you right now. Stop trying to get somewhere. Stop trying to be over there. I'm going to be okay when. I'm going to be all right when. When I quit tripping, I'm going to be okay. Damn, when I quit putting my foot in my mouth, and you beat yourself. No, the best you now. Here's the other part of that that's true in the spiritual life. I don't have to accept unacceptable behavior from me. That's the tightrope in AA that we don't often walk. Most of us walk on one side or the other. I'm fucking, it's cool. You shouldn't, and I'm justifying bad behavior. Or I'm on the other side of the tightrope and I'm just beating myself to death for it. And I'm depressed and I'm down and Lily, I am 72. I'm deeply flawed. I fall down, but goddamn it, I'm living. I'm living before I die. I'm here. I'm here. Damn it, I am here. I am present for the experience. I'm laughing. I'm singing. I'm hugging my babies. I'm kissing. I'm telling you I love you when I see you. Later for the bullshit. I'm not tripping off our last encounter. How come we do that? People in here right now, Ralph preaching. Okay, you got me. You shouldn't ask me to come. Ralph is preaching. Why are we going to sit up in here and have relationships with each other? And they've been great relationships. And then somebody say something one time. Tanya say something. I hear about it. There that B go talking about me. Now I'm going to talk about her. We've been cool in the gang and we in this lifeboat together. And all of a sudden, I'm going to judge her on her worst day. I'm going to judge her on our last encounter. I'm going to demonize her and I'm going to make her the monster. Stop it. Stop it. Two places we coming from. We coming from fear or we coming from love. This fellowship that I'm proud to be a member of, it's not a faceless, nameless entity. It's not just a, 2-letter CA. It's not, no. It walks and it talks and it shakes hands. It's got a beating heart. It's got broad shoulders. It hugs. It encourages. It uplifts. It supports. It calls. That's what we do with each other. Yeah, at our worst, we do some of that other bullshit, but okay, that's not who we are. That is who we are. But that is where we get the opportunity. We get the opportunity to put our mess in God's hands. And we get our opportunity to transcend it. We get an opportunity to see a step 7. We get an opportunity when we get sick of our own shit to say, okay, God, I can't. And then John was asking me, Ralph, what would be your instruction there? That's your 6th step. And when you don't defend your behavior, and when you say, I'm sick of this behavior, oh my God, you're in the 6th step. God, do something with me. And then watch him do something with you. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. He'll do something with you. He's done something with me.